That building was in such poor shape that the snow blowed in around the bedroom window at the barracks, and I had snow on my blanket in the barracks. That first night I stayed at Cumberland, I thought, is this something that I really wanted to do?
Elwood worked at all three barracks. The fact is, HB, March, asked me to head up the time capsule committee. Elwood placed the capsule when Roy Reed and I were there with him. And then from there, I talked to March about, if we could get Elwood to do some dispatching, and he could say he worked at all three barracks, and we did.
In the wintertime, when we'd get these snowstorms, and we've had some terrible snowstorms, especially it seemed on Christmas and New Year's holiday, but the troops would come in off the road, get downstairs, break out the cards, play cards. They didn't go out there and cause more problems. It was like one big family, and they really looked out for everybody.
Elwood was not only a dispatcher, he was pretty much the duty officer whenever he was working also. Back in those days, the sheriff's office pretty much just handled their routine duties for the county of serving papers and things like that. And we pretty much handled the entire county. With most work groups, there were 3 guys, maybe 4, and we got to know people, and you knew what was going on throughout the county, so you could have an impact.
Everybody that worked at the Cumberland Barrack just had basically a vested interest in the community, because most everybody was already from there, and it was not a stopover assignment. It was a place where people wanted to end up. It wasn't where they were just stopping there on their way to somewhere else.
If you had to go and arrest someone, they might not be too happy with you, but generally most of the citizens, law-abiding people, they treated us very well.
You have a tendency to be vested in your community and to be part of that. There's something to be said about, protecting your home and your family and your community. And that's what you find with Cumberland troopers. And I think that makes it kind of special. So that has helped serve us in the community well. And, our guys and gals that work here, they're part of a lot of the civic organizations, and that brings that tie and that bond back home here to the barrack. And I think that's special. After working here so long and being with the guys and gals that work here, to have been here for 3 years as an assistant commander, and then nearly almost a decade as a barrack commander, you see a lot of things. I've literally seen a trooper breathe life back into a child, see somebody tackled to the pavement to keep from taking their own life, and then to turn around and see that same trooper go shopping with a kid at Christmas that's underprivileged, or help them bait a hook because they've never been fishing before. And you see somebody like that do those kinds of things. And you say almost daily. It doesn't happen daily, but there are some things that occur that you see that really stand out. And it's those little things. As far as the investigations go, the crimes against children and the elderly, they're the most heartbreaking, but they can be very rewarding when you see that through with your people and you see that justice is served on these perpetrators, and the victims get some kind of redemption out of it. So there are hundreds of those kinds of incidents.
One that has stayed with me was the case of Charity Shankle. This barrack's finest hour, I believe, in that that was my call initially. It was out on Irons Mountain, and they had reported her missing because she hadn't gotten off the school bus so far as her parents knew. And she had been molested and mutilated, and she crawled a quarter of a mile up her driveway, and her dad had her whenever I got there, and he said he'd called an ambulance, but I didn't feel like there was time to wait on an ambulance out there, so he wrapped her in a blanket and we took her to the hospital, and she was able to give me a lot of information on the way to the hospital because she was bleeding very bad. And they took her there, and everybody who was working just kept working, and guys who came out just kept working until we found the guy, John Kroll. We were able to find his car, and he was arrested, and he spent 30 years in Patuxent.
When I came here as first sergeant, Mike was a young trooper here, and he was one of my best troopers. My job as first sergeant also was a production manager, so to speak. So you get to recognize who does what, and Mike was definitely. And what made me proud was he went on to become the barrack commander also.
I was just going to say Presley, he came here as a first sergeant when I was here, and he was very good to work for. Then he was the barrack commander, and he had a good way about him that he was one of those guys you wanted to work for, and I found it very easy to work for him. But you know, of course, if you did your job, he appreciated it, and he let you know that.
Cumberland had large industries and a lot of labor, and they were union. And the first thing I got thrown into was a strike at the old Kelly Springfield as a first sergeant. We were assisting the city. And then after that strike at the West Vaco at the paper company. And then we had the truck strike, and then the coal strike at Matiki Coal Company. So I had to learn another part of that trade. And also, during my first year here, it was when we had 2 West Virginia state troopers that were shot and killed serving a warrant in Paw Paw, West Virginia, right across the border. And the culprit fled into Maryland, and we did some extensive time in the middle of the winter with 2 or 3 feet of snow chasing him down. Finally got him. Well, he shot himself. So Cumberland started out very interesting for me. But one of the most memorable experiences as barrack commander was a homicide on the Frostburg State University campus. Her name was Charlton, and she was killed on campus and stabbed to death. And it's when we first got involved with creating crime scene search teams, and we searched that whole arboretum and we found her body. And one of the reasons I bring that up is I was the barrack commander and somewhat in charge of that investigation, and I requested a case management unit from headquarters, which they sent up, but it was not resolved. It has never been resolved. But later on, when I was commander of the Criminal Investigation Division, we had a cold case unit, and I revived the case, and it went nowhere. And then later on, when I was with the vehicle theft, a cold case investigator called me. They had revived the case again, and it still went nowhere. So I guess that's one of the things I regret, that we never really resolved it.
You know, there's a lot of horrible things that go on in this job, but you try to focus on, you know, the good that you did and maybe the difference that you made in somebody's life. Being a barrack commander is a challenge. on your best day. But having a project like this is, honestly, it's like having two jobs. But, you know, that came a little easier for me because we have good people that work here. Serving as a barrack commander for nearly a decade here was a privilege for me, and to get to see, you know, guys and gals that came and go. Sometimes they use this as a stepping stone to something greater with MSP, and that's okay because this is, you know, we've trained a lot of people here too.
Hopefully what they do, they will use this as a blueprint, and particularly some of the securities, and improve on that as they go. When we look at how modern this barrack is compared to some of the other ones, this is fantastic.
Here at 1125 National Highway, we're privileged that we got to build this beautiful facility here in the same spot that served the community for so many years. So there's kind of a sentimental, you know, value to all of that. But the building was, you know, it needed a lot. I won't say that it was falling down around us, but it needed some work. But she served us well, and we did our job out of it. But we needed to look towards the future and the other amenities that were necessary for policing now. It's a special place because of the troopers that work here. The building itself, it's a great building. You know, it's got all the modern amenities that we need for police function in the 21st century, but it's just a building. What makes it special is the people that work here, the people that have worked here, and the people that are gonna work here.
You get nostalgic as you get a little bit older. It's a huge part of your life that's behind you, but you still think about it.
On the day of my marriage, I was upstairs. I had just gone across the hall to the shower room to get a shower. Here comes these two troops upstairs. They grabbed me. No need fighting. Two armed troopers took me down the steps to the basement level where the cell was, put me in the cell, and left. And I said, this is going to be good. And, you know, looked at my watch, probably in 45 minutes while I was supposed to be at the church getting married. Well, anyhow, said, well, we changed our mind. If you want to do yourself in that bad, we'll help you out of here. And by the way, we've been married since '58. 66 years she's been putting up with me.